You didn't just happen to show up. You were chosen to awaken something he had buried. Have you ever felt your heart being drawn to someone, even when logic said to take the opposite path? That feeling doesn't lie. The angels say, you were the one he asked for without knowing. You were the one heaven sent. Some encounters don't follow earthly timelines. They come with silent codes, omens disguised as coincidence, and a force that is as gentle as it is undeniable. You entered his life like someone opening a window after years of drawn curtains. At first, he didn't understand. How can you comprehend something that comes from above when the soul is accustomed to the ground? But even without understanding, he felt it. Your presence began to change the rhythm of his thoughts. He started searching for you, without wanting to admit it. And you, even without words, already knew. You knew you were there for something greater. Not to save, not to fix, but to remind him of who he was, before everything hurt. The angels whisper, you found him in the midst of the desert, so he would remember the water. It wasn't beauty that touched him, nor lightness. It was the truth. The kind that escapes from your eyes when you look with an open heart. He wasn't ready, but you were exactly what he needed to find in order to start hearing the questions he always silenced. And even if he runs away, even if he gets confused, the call has been made. The mission has begun. Because what comes from the soul doesn't fade away, it transforms. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I sanctified you. Jeremiah 1 verse 5. Just say this to yourself today, I was sent. His silence wasn't disregard, it was protection from his own fears. Have you ever wondered why he disappears just when things seem to align? Why does touch turn into distance, and exchanges of glances into evasion? The angels say, he feels, but feeling still hurts him. This connection vibrating between you is not light. It lays bare. It illuminates shadows he has always hidden. He hasn't learned to be fully loved, only to survive in pieces. And when you got closer, you became a mirror. And he saw himself. Naked. Fragile. Defenseless. There are wounds in him that have ancient names. Rejection. Abandonment. Shame. You didn't cause any. But your gentle presence is a reminder that they are still open. And for that reason, he runs away. Not from you, but from what he feels and cannot name. You are not being ignored. You are being confronted with a point where his soul is still at war. The angels whisper, it's not a lack of feeling. It's an excess of scar. He built walls with bricks of pain. And you, unknowingly, showed up with too much light. And when the light shines in, it reveals what was hidden. He is not fleeing from who you are. He is trying not to crumble in front of what you make him see. Breathe. His distancing doesn't invalidate what you experienced together. It doesn't cancel what was felt. It only shows where there is still a wound needing healing. And as long as he doesn't recognize that, the ebb and flow will be inevitable. You are facing someone who is fighting their own ghosts and at the same time, trying not to hurt you with a scream still echoing inside them. Don't take it personally. Take it spiritually. Because it is. He hasn't disappeared out of malice. He just doesn't yet know how to stay when love shows him who he truly is. You were not called to dim your light for love. You were sent to remind what light is. It's easy to get lost when the heart feels more than it can understand. It's easy to make the other an altar, and forget that you are sacred too. The angels say, it's not your mission to sacrifice yourself. It's your mission to stay lit. He may be in the process. He may be confused, hurt, trapped in his own labyrinths. But that doesn't mean you should shrink to fit into the tight space he offers. You aren't here to carry his pain on your shoulders. You are here to keep your soul strong, while his time organizes itself. And yes, it may seem unfair. You gave your all. You opened doors. You were present. You prayed in silence. But there's an invisible and sacred line that protects the woman who loves while loving. You can feel everything, without losing yourself in the emotion. You can wish for his healing, without forgetting your own. You can care, and still choose yourself every day. Because if love demands you to diminish yourself, it isn't love. It's disguised neediness. The angels whisper, you can only heal when you remain whole. Maybe he will return. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will understand the connection. Maybe he will only sense it. But none of that can dictate your light. You have waited too long. You have tried too hard. You have given silently, believing that the right time would come. And maybe it will. But not at the expense of your peace. Today, take a deep breath. And say, I will not abandon myself to be chosen. Because what is yours by divine right does not require you to hurt yourself to receive. You are a beacon, not a candle that burns out. You were not the problem. You were the reflection. When you arrived, he couldn't explain the discomfort, but he felt it. He felt as if something inside him was being touched by invisible hands. It wasn't pain, but it wasn't peace either. It was confrontation. The angels say, you made him see what he has always avoided. It wasn't your words, nor your touch. It was your energy, raw, alive, pure. An energy that said, here, everything false dies. Only what is true remains. And he wasn't ready for that. Your presence exposed cracks in his pride. It shook the truths he built to survive. You were a mirror. And mirrors do not create wounds. They only show where they are. That's why, sometimes, he seems distant. Because looking at himself hurts more than he wants to admit. You think you're being rejected. But he's just struggling to maintain the armor that has protected him for years. He doesn't understand why everything trembles when you come near. But the angels whisper, it's because your light reveals what he's buried. His soul recognizes yours. But the ego resists. And in this battle, you find yourself questioning your own worth. But you are not his doubt. You are the shimmer. You didn't break him. You just didn't cover up the cracks. Today, look at yourself in the mirror that you represent for him. See the strength in being the reflection, not of what wounds, but of what liberates. And if he can't hold what he sees, it's not your fault. It's too much courage for someone who has lived in hiding. The angels say, keep being light. Even if his eyes are still closed. You touched something in him that even he didn't know existed. At first, it felt just like another encounter. Words, glances, presence. But something deep inside was different. There was a restlessness in the silence. And a strange warmth in the space between the two of you. The angels say, his spirit recognized the promise made before time. He tries to rationalize it. He tries to give human names to something that comes from the soul. But he can't. Suddenly, simple things start to hurt him. Songs, places, scents. Everything begins to remind him of you. He doesn't understand why he misses you, even after distancing himself. He doesn't understand why his chest tightens, even while pretending to forget. But awakening doesn't ask for permission. It comes. And when it comes, it breaks through what was asleep. Maybe he's still resisting. Maybe he's looking for distractions, trying to convince himself that he doesn't feel. But the angels are working in the invisible. They say, his heart is waking up, even when the mind tries to sleep. You feel it, don't you? You feel when he thinks of you. You feel when he almost reaches out. You feel when he dreams, but doesn't remember. It's because the connection hasn't been broken. It's just being adjusted to the frequency of truth. And the truth is that he never forgot you. He just fell asleep within his own fear. But the cycles are beginning to open. And his soul starts to peek through cracks he didn't even know existed. This is the beginning of the return. Not necessarily physical, but energetic, spiritual, real. Get ready. Because when the spirit starts to awaken, it seeks the light that stirred it. And that light is you. He returns, not because he's fickle, but because the soul is still learning how to stay. Have you noticed how he gets close, and then disappears? As if his heart is always in transit, torn between desire and fear? The angels say, he feels your absence like fire, but your presence, like a mirror. This back and forth isn't disinterest. It's an overflow of feeling combined with a lack of readiness. It's love that still doesn't know how to feel at home. It's a deep bond, in a heart that only knows the shallow end. He tries to regain control. He tries to pretend he doesn't feel, that it doesn't matter. But then one of your gestures, a memory, a loose thought, and he returns. Not because he decided to, but because something within him won't allow him to forget. But when he gets close, he feels everything again. The intensity, the surrender, the truth. And that frightens him. The angels whisper, his soul recognizes you. But the ego is still trying to flee. This ebb and flow hurts you. It exhausts. It confuses. But it's not against you, it's against the force you awaken in him. He fights against a love he has never seen. A love that demands surrender without guarantees. Presence without demands. A soul without defenses. And he still doesn't know how to stay whole in the face of that. You're caught in a cycle that feels unfair. But it's part of his soul's learning. And perhaps, yours too. Because every time he leaves, you rediscover yourself. And every time he returns, you see deeper. Don't take it as punishment. Take it as revelation. Because only those who are still connected come back. Only those who feel too much run away. Today, just listen, he's still coming. Even if he leaves before he stays. You healed wounds he never had the courage to touch. He didn't realize it at first. He thought he was just being heard, welcomed, wanted. But what he didn't know is that, right there, within his silences, there was healing. The angels say, the love you gave touched parts of him he didn't even know hurt. It wasn't a forced healing. It was the kind that arrives softly, like a gentle breeze on a warm day. Without demanding. Without pushing. Just existing, with presence and truth. Your sweetness disarmed what the world had hardened. Your gaze said, you can breathe here. And even without understanding how, he breathed. Deeply. Like someone who, for years, had lived in fear of being. He didn't tell you this. Maybe he'll never say it. But you were a bomb in a place that once held only dust. The angels whisper, even without promises, you offered presence. Even without answers, you stayed. And that was more than love. It was medicine. It was a secret code sent from above, saying, you are worthy. Even with flaws. Even without knowing how to love correctly. But he still carries a soul in reconstruction. And sometimes, what is broken doesn't know how to express gratitude. It runs away. Falls silent. Confuses presence with danger. But the memory of what you represented remains. On days when he feels weak, he will remember the strength he felt by your side. On days when the world feels hostile, he will remember the refuge you were. You were a temple. And you still are. Even if he no longer knows how to enter. This love, silent, strong, spiritual, doesn't need applause. It fulfills its mission in the invisible. And the invisible is where the deepest healing resides. None of this is by chance. You are exactly where heaven placed you. There are days when everything seems uncertain. You miss him, but you don't know if you should wait. You sense there's a purpose, but his silence screams louder than faith. And even so, something inside you won't let go. The angels say, you are being guided, even when the path seems invisible. You've tried to convince yourself it was all an illusion. You've wanted to erase what you felt, forget what you lived. But what is spiritual cannot be erased. It simply retreats, until the right time comes. He still doesn't understand what it was between you two. But heaven knows. It was a soul encounter. It was an activation of purpose. It was an answer to the prayer made in silence. And you were chosen to be a bridge. A bridge between his pain and love. Between his past and truth. The angels whisper, every step you take is being observed. Every tear, collected. Every silence, interpreted. You are not alone. Even when he seems distant, there is a plan in motion. There are greater forces than both of you weaving this thread. And if it is meant to be, it will be, not because you fought, but because God's timing doesn't fail. Today, allow yourself to trust a little more. Not in what he says, but in what heaven has already shown you. What is spiritual doesn't need to be forced. It just needs to be sustained, with faith. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. Psalm 37 verse 5. You have already surrendered. Now, just continue. Chapter 9, Vulnerability. He pushed you away, so you wouldn't see how broken he was. You thought he was cold, distant, closed off. But the angels say, he just didn't want you to see how hurt he really was. Pain has a strange way of hiding. It dresses up in pride, speaks with disdain, pretends it doesn't feel. But deep down, it trembles. And that's what happened when you arrived. He didn't expect to feel seen. He didn't want to be touched where it always hurt. But you, unknowingly, placed your hand right there, in the very spot where he needed it most, and could least tolerate. And that disarmed him. He thought about opening up, for a moment. Thought about sharing where it hurts, why he runs, what he misses. But he couldn't. Because the fear of rejection still speaks louder than the desire to be loved. The angels whisper, he feels. But he feels like someone who bleeds in secret. He stepped away because for him, love is risky. It's exposure. It's a mirror he cannot control. And to show vulnerability would mean admitting that you see him, behind the facade, beneath the resistance. He's not ready for that. Not yet. But you need to understand, it wasn't a lack of feeling. It was an excess of fragility. You weren't too much. You were just too intense for someone who only knows the shallow. Today, look at it with compassion, but also with wisdom. True love begins where the soul strips bare. But it only flourishes when there is courage on both sides. My strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9. Vulnerability is the portal. But only those who accept being seen can enter. Not everything that is eternal stays. Sometimes, eternal love simply passes and transforms. You expected him to stay. Maybe not forever, but enough to acknowledge all that you were. Enough to speak clearly about what got stuck in time. But he didn't say it. And you were left with the weight of the unsaid, with the echo of what could have been. The angels say, what was lived doesn't need to be repeated to be real. Sometimes, destiny doesn't carry the story forward. It carries the lesson forward. And what you both lived was real. Even if he denies it. Even if he has left. Even if he cannot name it. His soul recognized yours. But not every soul that recognizes has the maturity to sustain it. Accepting this is not giving up. It is honoring what was. And letting go with respect. Because true love, above all, is freedom. The angels murmur, you have done your part. And that is enough. Now, it's time to choose yourself. To stop asking why and start asking and now. Now, you gather yourself. Now, you walk without seeking explanations. Now you surrender, not the pain, but the control. And in place of waiting, you plant faith. If he is to come back, it will be with a clear heart. If not, someone will come along who sees your worth without needing to be awakened. You don't need proof. You don't need incomplete returns. What you need is peace. And peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you create. You choose. You allow. Tell yourself, I honor this story, but I won't lose myself in it. The sky is watching you, and it's preparing encounters that don't require suffering. The right kind of love doesn't confuse. The right kind of love finds its way back. Or it opens a new path, lighter, more whole, more yours.